After 40 years of living, learning, and loving, you'd think spotting a player would be easy. You've got decades of experience, wisdom earned through heartbreak and triumph, and instincts sharpened by time. Yet here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to talk about. Players targeting mature women have evolved. They've studied what works. They've learned from their failures. And most dangerously, they know exactly which buttons to push, with a woman who's lived long enough to think she's seen it all. I'm not here to make you paranoid or convince you that every man who shows interest is running a game. But I am here to share something that could save you months or even years of wasted time and emotional energy. There are 5 specific signs that appear early in dating, signs so subtle that even the most perceptive women miss them. These aren't the obvious red flags your friends warned you about. These are the sophisticated tactics that players use specifically on mature women, because they know traditional advice doesn't prepare you for this level of manipulation. Before we dive deep into these warning signs, I want you to do something for me. If you've ever felt that gut feeling that something was off with a man, but couldn't quite put your finger on what it was, hit that like button right now. Your engagement helps this video reach other women who need to hear this message. And if you're serious about protecting your heart and your future, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss content designed specifically for women who refuse to settle. The comment section is your space to share your experiences, ask questions, or simply connect with other women on this journey. And if you find real value in what I'm sharing today, consider supporting this channel with super thanks. It helps me continue creating content that actually makes a difference in your life. Now, let's talk about why mature women are specifically targeted by a particular type of player. This isn't about blaming victims or suggesting you've done something wrong. This is about understanding a game that's being played whether you consent to it or not. The modern player targeting women over 40 is not the same guy who was hitting on college girls at bars. He's more refined, more patient, and far more dangerous because he's learned that mature women respond to completely different triggers than younger women do. Think about where you are in life right now. Maybe you're divorced and rediscovering yourself. Perhaps you're widowed and opening your heart again after loss. You might be someone who focused on career and is now ready for partnership. Or maybe you've been in and out of relationships and you're determined this time will be different. Whatever your situation, you bring something to dating that younger women typically don't have. Resources, emotional stability, life experience, and often a decreased tolerance for games. Players know this. They know you're not impressed by flashy cars or empty promises. They know you need a different approach. So they've adapted. The first sign we're going to explore today is something I call the instant intimacy architect. This is going to challenge what you think you know about connection, because everything in our culture tells us that deep connection happening quickly is romantic and special. Movies show us lightning bolt moments. Songs celebrate love at first sight. Your friends might even tell you that when you know, you know. But here's what nobody tells you. Manufactured intimacy is the foundation of every sophisticated player's strategy when targeting mature women. Let me explain what instant intimacy architecture actually looks like, because it's not what you think. This isn't a man being overly sexual too soon or trying to rush you into bed. That's amateur hour and you'd spot it immediately. No, the instant intimacy architect creates emotional connection at an unnaturally accelerated pace. Within days or even hours of meeting you, conversations go deep. He's sharing childhood wounds. He's telling you about his failed marriage and what he learned from it. He's asking you profound questions about your dreams, your fears, your regrets. He remembers every detail you share and brings it up later, making you feel truly seen for perhaps the first time in years. Here's why this works so effectively on mature women. Specifically, you've spent decades being strong, being the reliable one, being the person others lean on. Maybe you raised children largely on your own. Perhaps you climbed corporate ladders in male-dominated fields. You might have survived a marriage where you were the emotional caretaker. After all that time being strong, there's a part of you that desperately wants someone to see beneath the armor you've built. When a man seems to not just see it, but celebrate it within days of meeting you, it feels like fate. It feels like you've finally found someone operating on your level of emotional maturity. But here's what's actually happening. The instant intimacy architect has learned that mature women value deep connection over surface attraction. He knows you're not going to fall for pickup lines or games, so instead, he's creating artificial closeness by using advanced psychological techniques. He's mirroring your communication style, matching your emotional intensity, and using strategic vulnerability to trigger your nurturing instincts and your desire to be understood. The vulnerability he shares is carefully calculated. It's just enough to make him seem deep and self-aware, but it never crosses the line into neediness or emotional damage that would make you run. He presents as a man who's done the work on himself, who understands women, who's ready for something real. Now, you might be thinking, how is this different from genuine connection? How do I tell the difference between a man who's genuinely compatible and connecting authentically versus someone manufacturing intimacy? This is the critical question, and the answer lies in timing and testing. Genuine connection, the kind that leads to lasting relationships, develops at a natural pace. There's a rhythm to real emotional intimacy that respects boundaries and allows space for both people to remain themselves. When connection is real, you don't feel overwhelmed by intensity. You don't feel like you're in a whirlwind. You feel grounded, safe, and progressively more comfortable over weeks and months, not days. The instant intimacy architect, by contrast, creates a sense of urgency. Conversations quickly become all-consuming. He texts constantly, wants to talk for hours, suggests you're soulmates or perfectly matched within an impossibly short time frame. He uses language that suggests exclusivity and future planning before you've even met in person or before you've gone on more than 1 or 2 dates. Pay very close attention to how he talks about exes or past relationships during these early, intimate conversations. The player will paint himself as the victim or the one who tried too hard or loved too much. He'll never present a balanced view where he takes genuine accountability for relationship failures. This is strategic because he's priming you to see him as emotionally available and wounded by others, which triggers your desire to be the woman who finally treats him right. Here's a specific example of how this plays out. You match with someone online or meet at a social event. Within the first few conversations, he mentions he's in therapy and working on himself. This immediately signals emotional awareness, which mature women highly value. He shares something personal, like his marriage ended because his ex-wife didn't appreciate his emotional depth or his career success threatened her. Notice what this does. It tells you he's reflective, successful, and has been undervalued. Then he asks you about your experiences, and when you share, he responds with such precise empathy that you feel completely understood. He says things like, "Wow, I can't believe someone treated you that way. You deserve so much better." Or, "It's incredible how strong you are. Most people would have given up." This isn't conversation. This is calculated emotional positioning. The test for instant intimacy architecture is simple, but requires discipline. Slow things down deliberately and watch what happens. If someone is genuinely interested in building something real with you, they'll respect your pace. They'll understand when you say you want to take things slowly or that you need time to process emotions. They won't panic when you don't respond to a text immediately or when you're not available for hours-long phone calls every night. A genuine person is building a life with you as a part of it, not making you the entire focus of their existence within days. The instant intimacy architect, however, will respond to your attempts to slow down with increased intensity. He might say you're overthinking things, that you're afraid of real connection, or that he's never felt this way before and doesn't want to lose it. He creates a false sense of now or never, as if slowing down means losing something precious. This is manipulation, another crucial aspect of instant intimacy architecture that specifically targets mature women is the future faking component. Future faking is when someone paints elaborate pictures of a future with you before any foundation exists to support those plans. With mature women, this looks different than it does with younger women. He's not talking about backpacking through Europe or vague romantic notions. He's talking about the things mature women actually want: stability, partnership, companionship, shared retirement dreams, blending families if you have adult children, traveling to places you've always wanted to see, building a life that reflects all you've worked for. He'll casually mention introducing you to his children or meeting yours. He'll talk about holidays together or selling his place to move closer to you or vice versa. All of this happens before you've established any real foundation of time, trust, and demonstrated consistency. Why does this work so well on mature women? Because you're not dating for fun anymore. You're dating with purpose. You want to know that time invested has potential for actual partnership. When someone seems to want exactly what you want and presents a clear vision of how that could look, it's incredibly compelling. But here's the reality check. Anyone can talk about the future. Genuine partners build toward it through consistent action over time. The player knows he only needs to keep you hooked for a few weeks or months to get what he really wants, whether that's sex, money, a place to stay, an ego boost, or simply the challenge of conquest. The elaborate future he's painting costs him nothing because he never intends to deliver it. Before we move to the second sign, I want you to take a moment and really reflect on this first one. Have you experienced instant intimacy architecture? Have you had a man come into your life like a whirlwind, creating deep connection at an unnatural pace, making you feel seen and chosen and special, only to have it fall apart once you were fully invested? If this resonates with you, drop a comment below sharing what you learned from that experience. Your story might be exactly what another woman needs to hear today. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The information I'm sharing gets more specific from here, and you don't want to miss the remaining 4 signs that could save you from a player's game. The second sign of a player targeting mature women is what I call strategic unavailability with perfect excuses. This one is particularly insidious because it disguises itself as exactly what you think you want. A man with a full, successful life who isn't needy or desperate. On the surface, his unavailability seems like evidence of stability and independence. He has a demanding career. He has responsibilities to his children. He's dealing with a complex divorce or caring for aging parents. He travels for work. Whatever the circumstances, his life is legitimately complicated in ways that a mature woman absolutely understands, because your life is probably complicated too. Here's where it gets tricky. When you're dating in your 40s, 50s, or beyond, you're not expecting someone to be available 24/7. You're not looking for someone to drop everything for you. You understand that adults have obligations, responsibilities, and lives that existed long before you came into the picture. You probably value having your own space and time as well. So when a man has limited availability, it doesn't immediately register as a red flag the way it might for a younger woman who expects more constant access and attention. In fact, his busy life might even be attractive to you because it suggests success, responsibility, and maturity. But strategic unavailability with perfect excuses is different from simply being a busy adult. The player uses unavailability as a control mechanism while keeping you just engaged enough that you don't walk away. He's available exactly when he wants to be, and unavailable exactly when it would require real effort or commitment. And most importantly, he always has reasons that make complete sense and appeal to your understanding, mature nature. Let me break down how this actually operates, because the devil is in the details. In the early stages, which might last weeks or even a few months, he's relatively available. Remember, he's already created that instant intimacy we talked about. You've had those deep conversations, you feel connected, and now he wants to see you. But here's the pattern. He's available at his convenience, never quite at yours. When you suggest getting together, he's busy, but he'll propose an alternative time. That alternative time works perfectly for his schedule and not quite as well for yours, but you make it work because you like him and you're flexible. This happens repeatedly. You start to notice that you're always the one adjusting your schedule, rearranging your plans, making yourself available on his timeline. Now, the perfect excuse component is crucial. He's not just saying he's busy with no explanation. He's giving you reasons that are impossible to argue with. He has his kids that weekend, and of course you respect his role as a father. He has a major work deadline, and obviously his career is important. His ex-wife created drama about custody, and naturally you empathize with how difficult co-parenting can be. A family member is ill, and clearly that takes priority. Every single excuse taps into your maturity, your empathy, your understanding of adult responsibilities. How can you possibly object when his reasons are so legitimate? But here's what you need to understand. Legitimate reasons can still be part of a strategic pattern. The question isn't whether his individual excuses are valid. The question is whether the overall pattern shows a man who's making you a priority despite his busy life, or a man who's keeping you perpetually on standby while maintaining complete control over when and how you connect. A man who genuinely wants to build a relationship with you, finds ways to make it work. He might say, "This week is completely crazy with work, but I really want to see you. Can we plan something definite for next weekend? Or could I stop by for even an hour on Thursday evening just to see your face?" He offers solutions, not just obstacles. He shows you through his actions that fitting you into his life matters to him. The player doing strategic unavailability operates differently. He keeps things vague. He says he'll let you know when he knows his schedule. He suggests getting together soon without committing to specifics. When you try to pin down plans, he gets slightly defensive or reminds you how complicated his situation is, subtly making you feel like you're being demanding or not understanding enough. This is particularly effective on mature women because you pride yourself on being low maintenance and understanding. You don't want to be the needy woman who doesn't respect his time, so you back off, you wait, and you let him control the entire rhythm of the relationship. Here's where it gets even more manipulative. Just when you start to feel frustrated or begin questioning the relationship, he becomes available. He suggests a last-minute date or sends a sweet message or makes time for one of those deep phone conversations. This sporadic reinforcement is one of the most powerful psychological hooks that exists. It's the same principle that makes gambling addictive. If you won every time you pulled a slot machine lever, it would be boring. If you never won, you'd stop playing. But winning just often enough to keep hope alive. That's what keeps people feeding quarters into machines. The player gives you just enough attention, just enough access, just enough intimacy to keep you invested while maintaining complete control over the terms of engagement. Strategic unavailability serves multiple purposes for a player. First, it allows him to manage multiple women simultaneously. If he's only available on his terms and maintains vague scheduling, he can rotate between different women without anyone knowing. That work trip might be real, or it might be time spent with someone else. Those weekends with his kids might be legitimate, or one weekend might be with the kids, while another is with a different woman he's telling the same story to. His unavailability creates plausible deniability for essentially any behavior. Second, strategic unavailability keeps you in a perpetual state of trying to earn more of his time and attention. This is psychological conditioning. When someone is always available, you can take them for granted. But when someone is scarce, you value the time you do get more highly. The player knows this. By being strategically unavailable, he makes the time you do spend together feel more precious, more special, more worth waiting for. You start to feel grateful for whatever scraps of time he offers, rather than expecting consistent effort and investment. Third, and this is crucial for mature women specifically, strategic unavailability prevents you from seeing who he really is. Relationships reveal themselves through time and consistency. You learn about someone's character by watching how they behave across different contexts, situations, and moods. You discover their values by observing their choices when things aren't easy. You understand their integrity by seeing whether their words match their actions over weeks and months. When someone is strategically unavailable, they control the narrative. They show you only what they want you to see, only in the moments they choose, only in the context that benefits them. You never get the full picture because you never get consistent access. Let me give you a concrete example of how strategic unavailability with perfect excuses might unfold. You meet someone who seems perfect on paper. He's accomplished, attractive, emotionally articulate, and you feel that instant connection we talked about earlier. For the first few weeks, you're texting constantly and having those long, deep conversations. He initiates most contact, which feels great. You go on a few dates that are wonderful. He's attentive, interesting, and everything feels promising. Then the pattern shifts. He becomes harder to pin down. He's still texting, but now it's more sporadic. He explains that work has gotten crazy. He's managing a major project and sometimes doesn't look at his phone for hours. You completely understand because you have a demanding career too. You try to set up another date, but he says his custody schedule changed and he has the kids more than expected. Obviously, you respect that his children come first. He suggests maybe the following week, but then that week comes and his ex is causing problems. He needs to deal with some legal issues related to the divorce. You empathize because you know how messy divorces can be. Another week passes. You're still texting occasionally, and when you do connect, the conversation is still deep and engaging. He tells you how much he misses you and wishes things were less complicated. He even talks about how great it will be when things settle down and you can spend more time together. This future talk keeps you hopeful. Finally, you see him again. The date is amazing. He's apologetic about the time apart, explains all the stress he's been under, and makes you feel special and desired. You're relieved. See, you tell yourself he really is interested. He was just dealing with a lot, but then the pattern repeats. He becomes hard to reach again. There's always a reason, always something legitimate, always something you can't really argue with. Weeks turn into months, and you realize you've been dating this man for 4 or 5 months, but you've actually only seen him a handful of times. You know a lot about his life from what he's told you, but you haven't actually been integrated into it in any meaningful way. You haven't met his friends or his kids. He hasn't met yours. You're not connected on social media, or if you are, he never posts about you. You exist in a bubble, controlled entirely by him. The test for strategic unavailability is to examine patterns, not individual instances. Look at the relationship over weeks and months, not day by day. Ask yourself, is this relationship progressing? Are you becoming more integrated into each other's lives, or staying compartmentalized? When you express needs or frustration about limited time together, how does he respond? Does he make genuine effort to create solutions, or does he make you feel like you're being unreasonable? Most importantly, do you feel like a priority or an option? Here's something many women don't want to hear. When a man truly wants to be with you, he finds a way. Yes, adult life is complicated. Yes, there are legitimate demands on time and attention. But people make time for what matters to them. If someone is consistently unavailable and the relationship isn't progressing after months of dating, you're not a priority. The excuses might be real, but the choices are deliberate. A player uses strategic unavailability to keep you invested while maintaining complete freedom and control. He gets the benefits of your emotional investment, your sexual availability when it's convenient for him, and your understanding patience without having to actually build a real relationship. Before we move to sign 3, take a moment and share this video. If you've been in a situation where you were always adjusting your schedule for someone who was never quite available for you, share this with someone who needs to hear it. And make sure you're subscribed to this channel because we're about to dive into the 3rd sign, and it's one that nearly every mature woman misses until it's too late. The 3rd early sign of a player targeting mature women is what I call financial ambiguity with aspirational presentation. This is perhaps the most overlooked red flag because it comes wrapped in packaging that seems sophisticated, successful, and entirely appropriate for someone at this stage of life. Let me be very clear from the start. I'm not suggesting that you should only date wealthy men, or that a man's worth is determined by his bank account. What I'm addressing here is a specific pattern of deception where a player deliberately creates a false impression of his financial situation to manipulate and exploit mature women who have worked hard, built stability, and have resources worth protecting. Mature women are different from younger women in many ways, but one of the most significant is financial independence. You've likely spent decades building your career, your savings, your investments, your home equity. You might have retirement accounts, insurance policies, property, or other assets. You're not looking for someone to take care of you financially. In fact, you're probably looking for someone who's equally stable, someone who won't drain your resources or complicate the financial security you've worked so hard to create. Players targeting mature women know this. They know you need to believe they're financially stable before you'll invest in the relationship. So they create an elaborate facade. Financial ambiguity with aspirational presentation is the art of appearing successful without ever providing concrete proof. The player presents himself as having money, earning well, and being financially responsible. But when you look closely, everything is vague. He might have a job title that sounds impressive at a company that seems legitimate, but you never quite understand exactly what he does or how much he makes. He might be in business for himself, which sounds entrepreneurial and successful, but the details are always fuzzy. He might be between opportunities, but expecting a major deal to close soon, or waiting on an inheritance, or having assets tied up in a divorce settlement. The common thread is that the financial picture is never quite clear, but the impression is always positive. Now, why is this so effective on mature women specifically? Because you understand that talking about money too directly can seem tacky or inappropriate early in dating. You know that secure, successful people don't need to brag about their finances or flash wealth. In fact, you might be somewhat suspicious of someone who talks too much about money because that seems immature or insecure. So when someone presents subtle markers of success without being overt about it, that actually seems more genuine and appropriate. The player exploits your sophistication and your assumption that adults at this stage don't need to discuss finances explicitly until the relationship is serious. Let me describe what financial ambiguity with aspirational presentation actually looks like in practice. Pay attention to the small details because that's where the truth reveals itself. He dresses well, not designer labels necessarily, but put together appropriate clothing that suggests he takes care of himself and has resources. He might drive a decent car, maybe even a luxury brand, though if you look closely it might be older or a leased model that he talks about trading in soon. He suggests nice restaurants when you go out, places that aren't cheap but aren't necessarily the most expensive either. He picks up the check confidently, which signals that he's financially comfortable and traditional about dating. Everything on the surface says successful man with resources, but then you start to notice inconsistencies. He lives in a nice area, but you've never been to his place. When you ask about it, he has a reason. He's in the middle of renovating. He has a roommate temporarily to help a friend out, which is embarrassing for him. His ex still has items there that she hasn't picked up, and it's awkward. He actually owns a property that he's renting out and staying somewhere smaller for now. Every explanation seems reasonable, but the bottom line is you haven't seen where or how he actually lives. This is strategic because his actual living situation might reveal that he's not nearly as financially stable as he wants you to believe. Conversations about work are similarly vague. He talks about projects and clients and deals, but nothing is ever specific enough for you to verify or fully understand. If he's employed, he might complain about his job or his boss, suggesting that he's too talented for his current position and looking for better opportunities. This frames potential financial struggles as temporary and beneath his actual capabilities. If he's self-employed, he talks about the business he's building and how close he is to major success. But somehow that success is always just around the corner, never quite realized. He might even involve you in his business plans, asking for your input or advice, which makes you feel valuable and creates the impression that he sees you as a partner. This is manipulation designed to blur the lines between your resources and his. The aspirational presentation component is crucial. He doesn't present where he is financially, he presents where he's going. He talks about the promotion he's expecting, the big contract he's about to sign, the investment that's about to pay off, the settlement from his divorce that's coming through soon. His entire financial narrative is future-focused, which serves two purposes. First, it maintains the impression of success and stability without requiring current proof. Second, it primes you to potentially help him bridge the gap between now and that successful future he's painting. After all, if he's just temporarily in a tight spot and success is imminent, helping him out seems like an investment in your shared future, not enabling someone who's financially irresponsible. Here's where mature women become particularly vulnerable. You're not gold diggers. You've worked for everything you have. You value independence and self-sufficiency. When someone you care about is struggling financially through no fault of their own, your instinct might be to help, especially if you're in a position to do so. The player counts on this. He never directly asks for money, at least not at first. Instead, he creates situations where offering help seems like the natural, caring thing to do. His car breaks down and he can't afford to fix it right away, which is going to make getting to work difficult. His ex is threatening to take him back to court, and he needs a lawyer, but his money is tied up. He's between paychecks and can't cover something unexpected that came up. He never demands. He just shares his stress and struggles, knowing that a caring, resourceful woman might offer to help. The financial ambiguity also serves another purpose for players. It allows them to be non-committal about future plans. If you suggest taking a trip together, he's enthusiastically interested, but somehow never quite able to commit to booking it. Work is too unpredictable right now, or he needs to wait for that expected money to come through. If you talk about moving in together or combining lives in any way, he's all for it in theory, but the timing never works out. He can't sell his place yet because of the market or the divorce or some other complication. Financial ambiguity keeps everything in perpetual limbo, where he gets the benefits of your emotional and potentially financial investment without ever having to provide the transparency or commitment that comes with a genuine partnership. Now, let me be very clear about something important. Not every man who's experiencing financial difficulty is a player. Life happens. People lose jobs. Businesses fail. Divorces are expensive. Health issues create bills. A good man going through financial hardship will be honest about it. He'll tell you directly that money is tight right now, and he'll be transparent about his situation. He won't pretend to be more financially secure than he is. He also won't allow you to invest your resources without clear discussions about repayment, or won't accept help that he can't reciprocate. Most importantly, his character and his effort to resolve his situation will be evident. He'll be actively working to improve things, not just talking about future success while doing nothing to make it happen. The test for financial ambiguity with aspirational presentation is transparency and timeline. If you've been dating someone for several months and you still don't have a clear, honest picture of their financial situation, that's a problem. You don't need to know their bank balance on the first date, but by the time you're discussing any kind of future together or any significant investment of time and emotion, you should understand their financial reality. Are they employed or unemployed? Do they own or rent their home? Do they have debt? What does their credit look like? These aren't invasive questions. They're basic adult information that responsible people share when building serious relationships. Also, watch the timeline of aspirational claims. If someone has been talking about that promotion, that big deal, that settlement, that business breakthrough for months, without any actual progress, you're being sold a fantasy. Success isn't theoretical. It happens or it doesn't. Someone who's genuinely on the cusp of financial change will show you evidence: the job offer letter, the signed contract, the court documents, the business metrics. Vague promises that never materialize are red flags, not romance. Another critical aspect to examine is reciprocity. In healthy relationships between financially stable adults, there's a natural flow of give and take. Maybe he picks up dinner this time and you get it next time. Maybe you pay for the concert tickets and he covers the hotel. Maybe he treats you to a weekend away and you cook nice dinners at your place. The specific arrangements don't matter. What matters is that both people are contributing. If you find that you're consistently the one covering expenses, buying groceries, filling up the gas tank, paying for entertainment, or lending money, you're not in a partnership. You're being used. Here's a specific scenario that happens frequently with mature women. You meet someone who seems wonderful. He's educated, well-spoken, presents well, and creates that instant intimacy we discussed earlier. A few weeks or months in, he shares that he's going through a difficult time financially. His divorce was expensive and his ex got more than she deserved. Or he had a business fail and he's rebuilding. Or he's between jobs after being laid off unfairly. The story is detailed and compelling. He's clearly intelligent and capable, so you believe him when he says he'll be back on his feet soon. He might even show you evidence of job applications or business plans, which makes his situation seem temporary and his recovery likely. You start noticing you're paying for things more often. At first, it's small: coffee here, dinner there. He's embarrassed but grateful, and he promises to reciprocate when his situation improves. Because you care about him and you believe in the relationship, this seems fine. You're not keeping score. But gradually, the financial imbalance grows. He might move in with you to save money temporarily, which makes sense logically, but means you're now covering his housing, utilities, and food. He might ask to borrow money for something important, always with a clear plan to pay you back soon. Months go by. The payback never comes. The situation never improves. The promised job opportunities fall through. The business deals don't materialize. At some point, you realize you've been financially supporting this man for months, and you have nothing to show for it except empty promises and a significantly depleted bank account. This is why financial ambiguity in the early stages is such a critical warning sign. If someone is deliberately vague about their financial situation while creating the impression of stability, they're hiding something, period. A man with nothing to hide will be straightforward when appropriate. A man who respects you won't allow you to be deceived about something as fundamental as whether he can support himself. And a man with integrity won't position himself as a catch while setting you up to be his financial safety net. Before we move to the fourth sign, I want to pause and acknowledge how painful this topic can be. If you've been financially exploited by someone you trusted, please know that it's not your fault. These men are sophisticated manipulators who exploit your kindness, your success, and your generous heart. But knowledge is power. By understanding these patterns, you protect yourself and your future. If this video is giving you insights you need, please take a moment to like it, share it with other women who need this information, and if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and consider supporting it with super thanks. The work I do here is specifically designed to empower women like you with knowledge that protects your heart and your resources. The fourth early warning sign of a player targeting mature women is selective storytelling with consistent victimhood. This pattern is particularly effective on mature women because it disguises itself as emotional openness and vulnerability, two qualities that women at this stage of life highly value in a partner. After years of dealing with emotionally closed-off men or partners who couldn't communicate, a man who freely shares his feelings and his struggles seems like a breath of fresh air. But there's a profound difference between authentic vulnerability and strategic victimhood, and learning to distinguish between them can save you enormous heartache. Let me start by explaining what selective storytelling actually means. This isn't about a man sharing his life story, his past relationships, or his struggles. That's normal and healthy in developing intimacy. Selective storytelling is a deliberate pattern of sharing information in a way that consistently positions the teller as the innocent victim of other people's bad behavior while avoiding any meaningful accountability for his own choices and actions. Every story has a villain, and he's never it. Every relationship that failed because of someone else. Every job he lost, he was treated unfairly. Every conflict he's been involved in, the other person was unreasonable. It's a pattern of presenting life events in a way that generates sympathy, minimizes his responsibility, and most importantly, primes you to be on his side without question. Mature women are particularly susceptible to selective storytelling with consistent victimhood for several reasons. First, you have enough life experience to know that people can be genuinely mistreated. You've probably experienced unfairness yourself. You know that divorces can be ugly, that exes can be difficult, that employers can be unreasonable, that families can be dysfunctional. So when someone shares stories of being wronged, you don't automatically dismiss them as lies. Your empathy and life experience make you receptive to believing that yes, he was genuinely mistreated by his ex-wife, his former business partner, his family, or whoever else features as a villain in his narrative. Second, mature women often pride themselves on being understanding and non-judgmental. You know that everyone has a past, that people make mistakes, and that Healing from difficult experiences is a process. When a man shares painful stories from his past, your instinct is to be supportive, not suspicious. You don't want to be the woman who doesn't believe him or who judges him harshly for things that weren't his fault. This compassion is beautiful and speaks well of your character, but players know how to exploit it. Third, consistent victimhood creates a very specific dynamic that mature women sometimes fall into without realizing it. When someone positions themselves as having been repeatedly hurt, misunderstood, or mistreated, there's an implicit invitation for you to be different. You can be the woman who finally treats him right, who understands him, who doesn't repeat the mistakes of all those terrible people who came before. This is incredibly appealing on a subconscious level. It makes you feel special. It creates a sense of purpose in the relationship. And most dangerously, it makes you hyper-focused on proving you're not like those other villains in his story, which means you're less likely to notice when he's treating you badly or to hold him accountable when he should be. Let me break down what selective storytelling with consistent victimhood actually looks like in practice. Pay attention to how he talks about his ex-wife or ex-girlfriends. This is one of the most revealing areas because how a man talks about past relationships tells you everything about how he'll talk about you someday. The player's ex is always crazy, unreasonable, vindictive, or damaged. She left him for no good reason, or she cheated, or she was emotionally abusive, or she became impossible to live with. He tried everything to make it work. He went to counseling, he was patient, he sacrificed. But ultimately, she was the problem, and he had to leave for his own well-being, or she left him, and he's still recovering from the betrayal. Now, some of this might be true. Some people genuinely do end up in relationships with difficult partners. But here's the key. How does he tell this story? A person with genuine self-awareness will tell you what happened, including their own mistakes and contributions to the relationship's failure. They'll say things like, "My marriage ended because we grew apart. I was working too much and I didn't prioritize the relationship the way I should have. She felt neglected, and honestly, she was right. I've learned a lot about what I need to do differently next time." That's authentic vulnerability with accountability. The player's version sounds different. "My ex-wife is completely unstable. I tried everything to make her happy, but nothing was ever good enough. She turned the kids against me. She took me to the cleaners in the divorce, and now I barely get to see my children. She's still making my life hell with constant court appearances and false accusations. I can't believe I wasted 20 years with someone so toxic." Notice the difference? One version shows growth and self-reflection. The other paints him as a pure victim of someone else's bad character. Pay close attention when he talks about his children, if he has them, in relation to his ex. A good father will express pain about custody arrangements or limited time, but he'll focus on his love for his kids and his commitment to co-parenting as well as possible, despite challenges. The player will focus on how his ex is keeping him from his kids, poisoning them against him, or using them as pawns. He positions his children as tools in his victimhood narrative rather than people he's actively parenting and prioritizing. This is a massive red flag because it shows that he uses even his own children to garner sympathy rather than taking accountability for his role in their lives. The pattern extends beyond just romantic relationships. Listen to how he talks about work situations. Has he had multiple jobs that ended badly? How does he explain those endings? Everyone occasionally has a bad work situation or loses a job for reasons beyond their control. But if he's got a history of job problems and every single one has the same theme, that's a pattern. His boss was incompetent, his co-workers were jealous, the company was corrupt, he was too good at his job and threatened people. He saw problems and spoke up and was punished for it. He was promised things that never materialized. Again, any one of these situations could be genuine. All of them repeatedly, throughout his entire career. That's selective storytelling. The same pattern appears with friendships and family relationships. If he tells you he's estranged from his family, how does he explain it? Is he the victim of their dysfunction, their lack of understanding, their unreasonable expectations? Does he have few or no long-term friendships? And when you ask about it, is he the victim of betrayal or people who didn't appreciate him? I'm not suggesting that everyone needs to have close family relationships or maintain friendships from childhood. Some people genuinely come from toxic families and have good reasons for distance. Some people move frequently or have lives that don't lend themselves to maintaining old friendships. But the pattern of consistent victimhood is what you're looking for. Does he take any responsibility for any relationship struggle in his life, ever? Or is he perpetually the good guy wronged by bad people? Here's why this pattern is so dangerous beyond just being annoying or self-centered. Selective storytelling with consistent victimhood serves multiple strategic purposes for a player. First, it preemptively deflects accountability. If you believe that everyone else in his life has treated him unfairly, then when problems arise between you two, you're primed to question yourself rather than him. When he does something hurtful or disappointing, your first thought won't be, "Why did he do that?" It will be, "Am I being unreasonable? Am I being like his ex? Maybe he's just hypersensitive because of how he's been treated." This self-doubt is exactly what he wants because it means you'll tolerate poor treatment rather than holding him accountable. Second, the victim narrative creates a debt of emotional labor that you'll try to repay. If he's been so hurt by everyone else, you'll feel compelled to be extra patient, extra understanding, extra forgiving. You'll bend over backwards to prove you're different, to show him that not everyone is terrible. This means you'll accept less than you deserve, overlook red flags you'd normally catch, and stay in situations you'd normally leave because walking away would make you just another person who hurt him. Third, consistent victimhood is a test of your loyalty and gullibility. By telling you these stories early and watching how you respond, he's assessing whether you'll believe him without question and whether you'll defend him against anyone who challenges his narrative. If you accept his version of events without any critical thinking, he knows he can control how you perceive reality. If you start asking probing questions or expressing sympathy for his ex-wife or suggesting he might have contributed to his problems, he knows you're too aware to be easily manipulated, and he might move on to an easier target. Fourth, and this is crucial, the victim narrative isolates you. If everyone in his life is terrible, problematic, or against him, then he has a built-in excuse for why you can't meet them, why you should question anything they say about him, and why you should trust only his version of events. If his ex tries to warn you about him, he's already told you she's crazy and vindictive, so you'll dismiss her. If his family reaches out with concerns, he's already told you they're toxic and controlling, so you'll defend him. If his former friends say something negative, he's already told you they betrayed him, so you won't believe them. This isolation is one of the most dangerous aspects of abuse and manipulation, and it starts with this seemingly innocent sharing of his painful past. Now, how do you distinguish between a man who's genuinely been through difficult experiences and is sharing them authentically versus a player using selective storytelling with consistent victimhood? The key is to look for balance, accountability, and patterns. A person with genuine self-awareness will share both the good and the bad. They'll tell you about relationships that ended, but also what they learned about themselves from those endings. They'll share about being hurt, but also about times they hurt others. They'll express regret about choices they made, not just anger about how others treated them. A genuine person will also speak about past relationships and conflicts with some degree of compassion or at least fairness. Even if someone's marriage ended badly, a mature, healed person can acknowledge that their ex wasn't entirely a villain, that they had good times once, that the person had positive qualities even if the relationship ultimately didn't work. They can discuss their children with love and without using them as proof of their victimhood. They can talk about work challenges without portraying themselves as a perpetual target of unfair treatment. The pattern matters more than any individual story. One difficult relationship, one unfair job termination, one family estrangement, one friendship that ended badly. These things happen to everyone. But when every single relationship in someone's life is a story of them being victimized, you're not looking at someone who's been unlucky. You're looking at someone who refuses to take accountability for their role in their own life. And if he can't take accountability for anything in his past, he won't take accountability for how he treats you either. Here's a test you can use. Try gently suggesting that maybe the situation wasn't entirely one-sided. If he tells you his ex-wife was completely unreasonable, try saying something like, "That must have been so hard. I imagine she was probably hurt too, and maybe you both made mistakes in the marriage?" Watch how he responds. A genuine person will consider this, might even agree or expand on their own mistakes. A player will double down on the victimhood, get defensive, or subtly make you feel like you're taking his ex's side by suggesting any shared responsibility. Another test: wait and watch for patterns in how he handles conflicts with you. In the early stages, he'll be on his best behavior, but gradually, issues will arise. When they do, does he take any accountability, or is every problem your fault, your misunderstanding, your oversensitivity? If the pattern of victimhood extends to your relationship, where he's never responsible for problems and you're always the one who needs to adjust, apologize, or understand better, you're seeing the full picture of who he is. He's not a victim of terrible people. He's someone who refuses accountability and uses the victim narrative to avoid ever having to change or take responsibility for his impact on others. Before we get to the fifth and final sign, I want to emphasize something important. If you're watching this and recognizing a pattern you're currently experiencing, please don't beat yourself up. These manipulation tactics work because they're sophisticated and because they exploit beautiful qualities in you: your empathy, your compassion, your willingness to give people the benefit of the doubt. Understanding these patterns doesn't make you weak or gullible for having fallen for them. It makes you informed and empowered to make different choices going forward. Please share this video with women in your life who need this information. Hit that like button to help it reach more people. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because the fifth sign I'm about to share is perhaps the most subtle and most dangerous of all. The fifth and final early warning sign of a player targeting mature women is what I call boundary testing through progressive encroachment. This is the most sophisticated manipulation tactic we're going to discuss today, and it's the one that mature women are most likely to miss because it unfolds so gradually and subtly that you don't realize what's happening until you've already lost significant ground. Unlike the other signs we've discussed, which have observable patterns you can identify relatively early, boundary testing through progressive encroachment is a slow erosion that happens over weeks and months, disguising itself as relationship progression when it's actually manipulation and control. Let me start by explaining what boundaries actually are, because there's a lot of confusion about this concept. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out. Boundaries are guidelines for how you expect to be treated, what you will and won't accept in your relationships, and what you need to feel safe, respected, and valued. Healthy boundaries in mature relationships might include things like, I need honest communication. I expect fidelity and commitment when we agree to be exclusive. I need my time and space to be respected. I need financial transparency if we're building a life together. I won't tolerate verbal abuse or disrespect. I need my relationships with friends and family to be supported, not undermined. These are reasonable expectations that any healthy adult relationship should be able to accommodate. Boundary testing through progressive encroachment is the process by which a player systematically identifies your boundaries and then gradually pushes against them, crossing them in small increments to see what he can get away with. It starts with tiny violations that seem insignificant or that he can easily explain away. Each small boundary crossing that you allow sets the stage for the next slightly bigger violation. Over time, this process completely rewrites what you're willing to accept, and you end up tolerating behavior that you would have immediately rejected at the beginning of the relationship. Here's what makes this particularly effective on mature women. You've spent decades being flexible, accommodating, and understanding. In your career, you learned to pick your battles. In past relationships, you learned that rigid inflexibility doesn't work. If you raised children, you learned that rules need to sometimes bend for special circumstances. You pride yourself on being reasonable, not controlling or demanding. These are good qualities, but a player sees them as vulnerabilities to exploit. He's counting on your flexibility, your willingness to give him the benefit of the doubt, and your reluctance to seem unreasonable by making a big deal out of small things. Let me give you concrete examples of how boundary testing through progressive encroachment actually unfolds. In the beginning, he's respectful of your time and your plans. When you have other commitments, he supports them. He doesn't expect you to drop everything for him. But then one day, he really needs to see you and asks if you can change your plans. It's presented as a special circumstance, something important, a genuine need, because you care about him and it seems like a one-time thing. You accommodate him. You cancel your lunch with a friend or postpone your workout class or skip the book club meeting you were planning to attend. He's grateful and he might even say he'll make it up to you. This seems like normal relationship compromise, but then it happens again and again. Each time there's a reason that makes the request seem legitimate. He had a terrible day and really needs to talk. He's got limited time available, and this is the only window that works for him. He's feeling disconnected and missing you. Gradually, you notice that you're constantly adjusting your schedule for him while he never adjusts his for you. Your plans become optional while his are non-negotiable. This happened so gradually that you can't point to a moment when it became a pattern. But now you're consistently putting his needs ahead of your own commitments, and you're the one accommodating while he's the one demanding accommodation. Or consider communication boundaries. Early on, if you tell him you're busy and will call him later, he respects that. But over time, he starts pushing. He sends multiple texts when you don't respond immediately. He calls during times you've told him you're unavailable, then gets hurt or upset when you don't answer. He says he was worried about you or really needed to talk or just missed your voice. Again, each instance has an explanation that makes your boundary seem unreasonable in that specific moment. But the cumulative effect is that your stated communication boundaries become meaningless. You learn that saying, "I'll call you later," doesn't actually mean he'll wait. It means he'll keep contacting you until you respond. So you stop setting that boundary at all. You answer even when it's inconvenient because it's easier than dealing with his hurt feelings or the barrage of follow-up messages. Financial boundaries are another area where progressive encroachment is particularly dangerous for mature women. Early on, everyone pays for themselves or takes turns covering expenses. But then one time, he's short on cash and you cover the bill. Then it happens again. Then he asks to borrow a small amount of money which he pays back promptly. This establishes a pattern where lending him money seems safe because he's demonstrated he'll return it. So when he asks for a larger amount, you feel comfortable saying yes. But this time, the payback doesn't come as quickly. There's a reason, of course. The paycheck was delayed. The refund didn't come through yet. The ex didn't pay child support on time. And you don't want to seem petty by demanding repayment of money from someone you care about, someone who's told you all about his financial struggles and his plans to get back on his feet soon. Before you know it, you've lent substantial money that hasn't been repaid, and you can't even point to when it became a problem because each loan seemed reasonable in isolation. The first crossed boundary was small, covering one dinner bill. The final boundary violation is large, being someone's unacknowledged bank with no repayment plan. But you can't identify the moment when you should have said no, because each individual step seemed like something a caring, understanding partner would do. Sexual boundaries are profoundly important, and another area where progressive encroachment can be especially harmful. In the beginning, he respects your physical boundaries completely, but over time, there might be little pushes. He wants to be intimate when you've said you're tired. He suggests activities you've expressed discomfort with. Each time you say no, he might respect it, but not without making his disappointment clear, or making comments that make you feel guilty or less desirable. Or he might initially respect your no, but bring it up repeatedly in different ways until you relent just to stop the pressure. This is not consent. This is coercion achieved through boundary erosion. The progressive encroachment strategy also applies to your relationships with others. At first, he might seem supportive of your friendships and family relationships, but over time, comments start appearing. Your best friend is a bad influence. Your sister doesn't really have your best interests at heart. That male colleague seems too interested in you. These comments are never presented as demands that you cut people off. They're presented as observations or concerns. He's just looking out for you. He's noticed things that worry him. He's sharing because he cares. But the cumulative effect is that you start feeling guilty about time spent with friends. You stop mentioning certain people to avoid his comments. You gradually become more isolated, and it happened so slowly that you didn't notice the walls being built around you. Here's the psychological mechanism that makes boundary testing through progressive encroachment so effective. The principle of consistency and commitment. Once you've said yes to something small, you're psychologically primed to say yes to something slightly bigger, because saying no would create cognitive dissonance. You've already established that you're flexible, understanding, and willing to accommodate. Saying no now would mean admitting that maybe you shouldn't have said yes before, or it would mean you're being inconsistent, which feels uncomfortable. The player exploits this by making each boundary violation just incremental enough that saying no feels like an overreaction. Another psychological principle at work is the sunk cost fallacy. By the time boundary violations have escalated to truly problematic levels, you've already invested significant time, emotion, and possibly money into the relationship. Walking away feels like wasting that investment. And because the boundary erosion happened gradually, you can't point to one specific deal-breaker moment that justifies leaving. Instead, you're dealing with 1,000 paper cuts, none of which individually seems worth ending a relationship over. But cumulatively, they've drained you of your sense of self, your connections to others, and your ability to enforce reasonable expectations. Boundary testing through progressive encroachment also serves to identify how much control the player can exert. He's essentially conducting experiments. If I do this, will she accept it? If I push here, does she push back or yield? If I cross this line, what are the consequences? If there are no meaningful consequences, he learns that he can continue to push. If you do push back, he learns how much pressure it takes to make you yield, and he calibrates his future violations accordingly. This is why early boundary violations, even small ones, are so important to address. You're not just standing up for yourself in that moment, you're establishing what will and won't be acceptable going forward. So how do you protect yourself from boundary testing? Through progressive encroachment. First, know your boundaries clearly before you start dating. Write them down if it helps. What are your non-negotiables? What do you need to feel respected and valued? What will you not tolerate under any circumstances? Having this clarity before you're emotionally invested makes it much easier to identify violations when they occur. Second, pay attention to patterns rather than isolated incidents. One time that someone asks you to change your plans might be a reasonable request. 10 times means you're with someone who doesn't respect your time. One time that someone pushes back on a boundary might be a misunderstanding. Repeated violations mean you're with someone who's testing how much you'll tolerate. Third, enforce your boundaries consistently, especially for small violations. This feels counterintuitive because small violations don't seem worth making a big deal over. But those small violations are the testing ground for bigger ones. If someone is consistently late and it bothers you, address it the third time it happens, not the 30th. If someone makes comments about your friends that feel off, address it immediately rather than letting it build into a pattern. If someone asks to borrow money and doesn't repay it promptly, address it before lending more. Fourth, watch how someone responds when you do enforce a boundary. This is perhaps the most revealing test of all. A good partner, someone who respects you and wants a healthy relationship, will hear your boundary, apologize if they crossed it unknowingly, and modify their behavior. They might need reminders as new patterns establish, but the overall trajectory will be toward respecting what you've expressed you need. A player will respond to boundary enforcement in very different ways. He might get defensive and turn it back on you, making you the problem for being inflexible or uptight. He might agree in the moment but continue the same behavior later, showing you that your words don't actually change his actions. He might make you feel guilty for having needs, suggesting that if you really cared about him or understood what he's going through, you wouldn't be so rigid about your boundaries. Here's a specific example of how this might play out. Let's say you've told someone that you need advance notice for plans because you have a busy schedule and you can't just drop everything at the last minute. This is a perfectly reasonable boundary for a mature woman with a life, career, and responsibilities. A respectful partner will plan ahead and will only ask for last-minute changes in genuine emergencies. A player testing boundaries will continue to make last-minute requests. When you point out that you asked for advance notice, he might say, "I know, but this just came up and I really wanted to see you. I thought you'd be happy that I'm making time for us." Notice what he's doing? He's reframing your boundary as you being ungrateful or not appreciating his desire to spend time with you. This puts you in a position where enforcing your boundary makes you the bad guy. If you hold firm and say, "I appreciate that you want to see me, but I've made other plans and I need you to respect my schedule. Let's plan something for next week with more notice." A genuine partner will say, "You're absolutely right, I'm sorry. Let's plan ahead for next week." A player will escalate. He might become cold or withdrawn, punishing you for maintaining your boundary. He might say something like, "Fine, I guess I'll just find something else to do," in a tone that makes it clear you've disappointed him. He might bring it up later in different contexts, suggesting that you don't prioritize the relationship or you're not as interested as he is. This emotional manipulation is designed to make maintaining your boundary feel worse than violating it, which is exactly how progressive encroachment succeeds. Another aspect of boundary testing that's particularly relevant for mature women is the way it intersects with life experience and relationship history. If you've been in past relationships where you were told you were too demanding too rigid, or too controlling. You might be especially vulnerable to someone who suggests that your boundaries are unreasonable. You might fear becoming that person again, so you err on the side of being too flexible rather than too firm. Players who've dated mature women before know this and exploit it. They know that many mature women have been called high maintenance or difficult by past partners, and they use that fear to discourage you from enforcing reasonable expectations. Here's what you need to understand. Having boundaries doesn't make you high maintenance, controlling, or difficult. It makes you self-respecting. Any partner worth having will not only respect your boundaries, but will appreciate them because they make the relationship clearer and more secure. When both people know what the other needs and limits are, there's less conflict, less guesswork, and more genuine intimacy. A player, however, doesn't want clarity or security. He wants malleability. He wants to be able to rewrite the rules as needed to serve his purposes. Your boundaries are obstacles to his agenda, which is why he'll systematically work to erode them. Let me share one more critical point about boundary testing through progressive encroachment. It doesn't just test what you'll tolerate, it changes who you are. When you consistently violate your own boundaries to accommodate someone else, you lose connection with yourself. You stop trusting your instincts. You second-guess your feelings. You become someone who says yes when you mean no, who stays quiet when you should speak, who accepts less than you deserve because you've learned that your needs don't matter. This transformation is insidious, and by the time you realize it's happened, you might not recognize yourself anymore. The way back to yourself starts with recognizing the pattern. If you're watching this video and you're seeing yourself in these examples, if you realize you've been slowly giving ground on boundary after boundary until you barely recognize the relationship you're in, please know that it's not too late. You can reclaim your boundaries. You can start saying no. You can start enforcing what you need, even if you haven't done so before. Yes, the person might react badly. He might escalate his manipulation. He might leave. He might try to make you feel guilty for changing the rules. But his reaction will tell you everything you need to know about whether this was ever a genuine partnership or whether you were simply with someone who saw your flexibility as weakness to exploit. Now, let's bring all 5 signs together and talk about what you do with this information. You've learned about instant intimacy architecture, strategic unavailability with perfect excuses, financial ambiguity with aspirational presentation, selective storytelling with consistent victimhood, and boundary testing through progressive encroachment. These 5 patterns represent the sophisticated playbook that players use when targeting mature women specifically. They work because they exploit qualities that are actually strengths. Your emotional intelligence, your empathy, your life experience, your independence, your compassion, your flexibility. There is nothing wrong with you for having fallen for these tactics. These men are professionals at manipulation, and they target successful, intelligent, caring women because those are the women worth manipulating. But now you know. And knowledge changes everything. When you can identify these patterns early, when you can see manipulation for what it is rather than mistaking it for connection or compatibility, you protect yourself. You save yourself months or years of heartache. You preserve your resources, your energy, and your faith in yourself. Most importantly, you create space in your life for genuine partnership with someone who doesn't need to play games because what they're offering is real. Here's what I want you to do with this information. First, if you're currently dating someone and you're recognizing multiple signs from what we've discussed today, take a step back. You don't have to make any immediate decisions, but you do need to start observing more consciously. Watch patterns, not just isolated incidents. Notice how he responds when you enforce boundaries or express needs. Pay attention to whether the relationship is progressing in healthy ways or whether you're in a holding pattern controlled by someone else's timeline and terms. Second, if you're not currently in a relationship but you're dating or planning to date, use these 5 signs as a filter. In those early weeks when chemistry is high and everything feels exciting, these signs will help you stay grounded. They'll help you distinguish between genuine connection and manufactured intimacy. They'll help you recognize when someone is showing you exactly who they are, even if they're doing it subtly. Third, share this information. The women in your life need to know what you now know. Your daughters, your sisters, your friends, your colleagues. These manipulation tactics work because they're not widely understood. The more women who can identify these patterns, the less effective they become. Players rely on targeting one woman at a time in isolation. When women talk to each other, when we share information and warn each other, their power diminishes. Fourth, do the work to heal from past relationships where you were manipulated or used. These experiences can leave you with shame, self-blame, or fear that makes you vulnerable to repeating patterns. Work with a therapist if needed. Join support groups. Read books about healthy relationships. Do whatever it takes to reclaim your sense of self-worth and your ability to trust your instincts. You deserve to approach future relationships from a place of wholeness, not from wounds that haven't healed. Fifth, and this is crucial, don't let this information make you cynical or closed off. Not every man is a player. There are good men out there who want genuine partnership, who will respect your boundaries, who will be consistent and authentic and worthy of your trust. This information isn't meant to make you suspicious of everyone. It's meant to give you tools to identify the ones who aren't worthy, so you can save your energy for the ones who are. Let me speak directly to you for a moment. You are at a stage of life where you have so much to offer. You have wisdom earned through experience. You have emotional depth. You have resources, stability, and the ability to be an incredible partner. You also have the self-awareness to know what you want and the life experience to know what you won't tolerate. These qualities make you a prize, not a target. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Don't let anyone make you feel like you should be grateful for scraps of attention or half-hearted commitment. Don't let anyone suggest that your standards are too high or your boundaries are too rigid. The right partner for you will meet you where you are. He won't need to create artificial intimacy because real connection will develop naturally. He won't be strategically unavailable because he'll want to spend time with you and he'll make it happen. He won't be financially ambiguous because he'll have nothing to hide and he'll want you to see all of who he is. He won't position himself as a perpetual victim because he'll take accountability for his choices and his impact. And he won't test your boundaries because he'll respect them from the start. You don't have to settle. You don't have to compromise on what you need to feel valued and respected. You don't have to tolerate manipulation or game playing. You have the power to walk away from anyone who doesn't treat you the way you deserve to be treated. And using that power doesn't make you difficult or demanding. It makes you wise. As we close out this video, I want to make sure you understand something important. If you recognized yourself or your situation in anything I've discussed today, please don't spiral into shame or self-blame. These manipulation tactics are sophisticated for a reason. They're designed to get past your defenses. They're designed to exploit your best qualities. Falling for them doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It means you encountered someone who was deliberately deceptive, and you responded like a normal, caring human being. Now you have information you didn't have before. Now you can make different choices. I also want to acknowledge that if you're currently in a relationship where these patterns are present, leaving might not be simple. You might have financial entanglements. You might share property or have blended families. You might be genuinely in love with who you thought this person was. Realizing you've been manipulated doesn't automatically give you a clear path forward. but it does give you clarity about what you're dealing with, and clarity is the first step toward making whatever decision is right for you. Whether that's setting firm boundaries and seeing if he can meet them, whether it's couples counseling to address patterns, or whether it's planning an exit strategy, you get to decide what comes next. Just do it with your eyes open. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you to take action on this video. First, hit that like button. Your engagement tells the algorithm to show this video to more women who need this information. Every like expands the reach and potentially helps another woman avoid a player's trap. Second, drop a comment below. Share your experiences, your questions, or just let me know this resonated with you. The comment section is a community space where women support each other and your voice matters. Third, share this video. Send it to friends, post it on your social media, email it to someone who needs to hear it. This information is too important to keep to yourself. Fourth, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. I create content specifically for mature women navigating relationships, and I tackle topics that other channels won't touch. I tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable, because you deserve to have all the information you need to protect yourself and build the life you want. Every video is designed to empower you with knowledge that makes a real difference. And finally, if you found genuine value in this video, if it's given you insights that could change your life, consider supporting this channel with super thanks. Creating content like this takes research, time, and dedication. Your financial support helps me continue producing videos that serve you and women like you. It helps me keep this channel independent so I can always tell you the truth without worrying about sponsors or outside interests. Every contribution, no matter the size, makes a difference and is deeply appreciated. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to look at uncomfortable truths. Thank you for caring enough about yourself and your future to invest an hour in learning how to protect your heart and your life. You deserve so much more than games and manipulation. You deserve genuine love, respect, and partnership. Never forget that. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue this journey together. Until then, keep your standards high, your boundaries firm, and your heart open to the person who's worthy of it.